CSPI's first in-person breakfast meeting. For those of you who were here in December, we had an all-day conference in person, and it was a little hit or miss in terms of whether we were going to pull this one off. I'm glad that we were able to do it. So I'm Frank Pena, as president of the chapter, and on behalf of the whole board, just welcome, thank you for making the effort. We are going to try and get back into in-person events, although some of our speakers we've recruited from around the country and even outside the country. So if you see a virtual event in the future, it's likely because it's a little cost prohibitive to bring that speaker into the city. So we'll keep you up to date on what we're doing there. And just mark your calendar for June 7th, which is our next breakfast meeting like we're having today. Just a couple housekeeping items. First, if you haven't signed in and you want to get CPE credit, be sure to sign in right outside of this room, in and out, so that we can issue your CPE certificate. Typically the way it works is we'll gather the records and then you'll get an email with a survey. Once you fill out that survey, you'll get your CPE certificate in the mail within a week or so. Let me ask Jen Fox, for those of you who don't know Jen. Jen's a relatively new board member for the last couple of years. She's going to just talk a little bit about our membership drive and our first quarter winner.
Hi, thank you. I'm so glad that we are live in person. As you know, networking is invaluable. We thank everybody who has participated in our membership drive so far, and if you're not familiar with the details, there are flyers on everybody's table. And a little cheat sheet on the back of that is our next couple meetings. So please share your experience with the chapter with all your friends and colleagues. Encourage them to join. If they put your name in the how did you hear about us, that gets you the point towards trying to win the quarter. Winners get a $100 gift certificate. The first quarter ended March 31st, and our winner was Marcia Cooper.
Perfect, thank you, Jen. And Irina, would you like to talk a little bit about our scholarship program and announce our recent winners?
Sure. Right here. So you can see it here. We decided as the Philadelphia area chapter to sponsor a giveaway of a CFE preparation course. And we encourage the associate members who are in good standing to participate. And we ran this program from the November of last year until the January of this year. And we had a number of very good candidates. It was tough for us to pick a winner, so we decided to go ahead and offer two CFE preparation courses. And I'm pleased to announce our winners now. The first one is Castle Abner Jr. Abner graduated from Widener University and received his doctorate degree of business from Rutgers School. And he has over 20 years career with IRS and Delaware Department of Labor. And he indicated that his future CFE designation will help him to further extend his career. And the second winner is Jan McFarland. She started her career as a bank teller and she spent 15 years in banking industry. After that, she went back to school at Liberty University and worked toward a certification in accounting through this online program. And in 2019, she began working for Nova Marcella as a payroll auditor, and she was promoted to the lead payroll auditor in 2021, and that designation will help her to advance her career further. Both of our winners received a digital key to the preparation materials already, and we understand they've already started preparing for this exam, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you.
All right, and now the moment we've all been waiting for. Steve, you don't sound surprised to hear it. So it's my pleasure.
Your standards are low for moments.
And people question who I associate with, so you're just here to make me look good.
I'll do my best.
So Steve and I just met a few months ago, and I think, I'll say this, and he may not agree, but I think we're becoming fast friends. We seem to have a lot in common. We know where to eat, that's for sure, and where to get a drink. But Steve's got an interesting background. And what I'm going to do is introduce Steve, and then he's going to introduce his esteemed panel of experts that he's going to co-present with. So before we get into Steve's background, today's topic is very interesting. It's called How the Wizard of Oz and the Internet, How the Wizard of Oz uses the Internet to steal your identity and your money. So you'll probably notice there's some interesting costumes up there, which Steve pulled out of a bag. So I don't know what to expect, but I think we're all in for a treat. But in terms of Steve's background, Steve is the founder of Innovative Development LLC, ID Discovery Inc., and IDLLC UK Limited. He began his career as an IT programmer, working with advanced programming and code generation tools. Then worked as a data architect and database designer until progressing into project management for large commercial and government projects. He's currently the CFO of Innovative Development LLC and the affiliated companies I just mentioned, but also acts as a sales manager and an internal project champion for a variety of the upcoming software projects that the company's developing. He's also authored a number of white papers and presentations for diverse audiences on topics such as record management, e-discovery, artificial intelligence, and internet security, all with a focus on helping provide information to corporate leaders to help them understand and manage the various emerging business and technology trends that they face and their organizations face. So without further ado, let's give Steve a warm welcome.
You got a small script there. So I think Frank perused the audience for some volunteers, and we'll get that in a minute. Let me introduce our group here. So on the far left is Martina Rodi, a co-founder, and probably the biggest fraud in history was me convincing her to marry. So she's our HR manager, and she's sitting in for one of our identity management consultants who got tied up with a client, but she's very good at reading, and she's done a lot of public speaking, so she'll be good. And Abed Dogar is one of our senior principal consultants. He has about 15 years of e-discovery experience, so if anybody's interested in e-discovery and legal-related services. He also is in the process of getting cybersecurity certifications for some of the more prominent cybersecurity tools with a focus on cloud cybersecurity. And in the back corner, where we always put the salespeople, is Rob Wilner. We put him in charge of the audiovisual crew today. He forgot his pocket protector at home. So Rob is the reason we know Frank. So we've done a couple presentations where we try to use themes that keep people's interest. Frank and I discussed death by PowerPoint. This is not death by PowerPoint. But what we are going to do is we're going to look at different ways that cybersecurity is implemented and ways to protect yourself personally on the internet. And there's several things that we have in the program today. And we're going to kind of follow a script where we're going to talk about fraud. We're going to have a script with our audience participants. Then we're going to do a little history piece on fraud. And it goes back thousands of years. And then visions of 1984. Now I chose that not to be too weird or too apocalyptic, but I went back and reread quotes from 1984, and I'll tell you what, that guy was a genius, because Alexa is listening. So anyway, without further ado, where's Frank?
Right.
There he is. Who did you assign to the front, which is better than being assigned to the back?
You have Jen Fox.
Hi, Jen.
Yeah, Joanna, right
Have
across
a
from
seat
Jen.
next to a bid, and we haven't decided who's
Joe?
playing what role yet, because the audience gets to decide
Joe
that.
and Megan. Is Megan in the room?
And you are?
Joanna.
Joanna? You can sit next to Joe. Hey, Joe. Do I get a shirt, Frank?
Absolutely.
Hi, Megan. Oh, wait a minute, she's got a nice jacket.
You got it, Steve.
Megan, one of each?
Absolutely.
So today, of course, we have our audience participants, and we need to decide who's the Tin Man, who's the Scarecrow, Who's the coward? This is my favorite, Cowardly Lion. By the way, whoever's the Cowardly Lion, do not just hold this. Remember, his tail is always moving. And then the man behind the curtain, or lady, that's not working. You know what? I'm just going to do this. The Wizard of Oz. I couldn't think of anything else, so I figured it'd be nice to learn. So, let's ask their preference. What would you like to be?
I don't care.
Okay, good. We're going to make her something she doesn't want. And,
This is in front of me, so I'll pick this.
there you go. Go ahead, try it on. Oh, that's not embarrassing at all. Do you have a choice?
Oh, she wants to be the lion.
Okay.
Let her
Is that the truth, or are you lying?
I
I
like
wrote
the
that.
tail, I have to admit it.
Okay, then you're the lion. You're going to be Oz, because I wanted Oz to be on the end here.
Okay.
Because you're kind of running the show. And that makes this lovely lady on the end. You do not have to wear these, but we would prefer it. So in front of you, there's a script. And if you'd like, you can open the script. We're not ready yet, so don't start reading. You will see at the top of the script, and you all don't have the script, this is just a little prep for them. You'll see moderator, that's me. The Cowardly Lion, that's the tail lady there. Scarecrow, that's you. The Tin Man, she likes that hat. Your hair's perfect for that. And then, of course, the Wizard. So what you'll see is if you move forward, you'll see OZ is Oz. So where you see your you can use the pen. CL, Cowardly Lion. Any place that says M, that's me. Don't steal my lines. Tin Man is TM. And SC is Scarecrow. And don't read ahead, that's cheating. So let's get started. You guys good? So why are we here? We know one thing. You guys are used to fraud management, policies, strategies, fraud risk strategies, risk prevention, risk detection, monitoring, reporting. Of course, clarity is the best. Fraud risk policy, right? Have clear guidelines. We're not talking about any of that today because you guys know that, right? Or you should, because you've had hundreds of these presentations where you talk about those things. What we're going to talk about today is things like fraud through history, how technology enables fraud, crypto, NFT, crypto asset fraud. Is it possible to hide on the internet? Passwords. Protecting yourself and who will save us. Now at the end of the presentation, we actually have a lawyer who's going to be talking about responses to cyber fraud in your organization. So what should you do if you get hacked? That's probably the serious part of this presentation. The rest of it is essential to the future of your whole industry. That's the part we're doing. That was supposed to be a joke, it wasn't funny. So one of the things that we're going to do, the way this is going to operate, is I will call on Abid and Martina. They will address one of these items on the screen. This is not death by PowerPoint. I'm not going to read off the screen. Everything is a summary up there. It's a bullet point. Abid will talk, Martina will talk, and then we'll do a script. Now, we may do a script pretty quickly. But either way, look at them, they're studying their scripts. Isn't that good? Isn't that what forensic accountants are supposed to be doing? Studying. So, the cyclical nature of fraud. There was a paper written about 25 years ago that talked about the cyclical nature of fraud and how fraud ebbs, increases, decreases, and all of it has to do with people's diligence towards fraud. So, Abid, why don't you take it from there?
Yeah, the cyclical nature really, oops, sorry,
You can just hold it a bit because Martina's going to use it too.
The intuition of the cyclical behavior really constitutes a feedback loop between the scammer and the person who is being scammed, right? So first, we empirically examine the cyclical outcome of a variety of frauds. Second, we show that the predicted outcome is theoretically robust, and moreover, we identify cycles based on the relative response or reaction rates of the two parties, scammers and victims. Interestingly, extremely fast responses by either side tend to eliminate the cycles. Moderate adjustment speeds by both sides is a necessity, and with the payoff conditions sufficient for cyclic behavior. And technology really drives fraud in these days, right? And many of them you guys would have already known, but I'm gonna say some. Currency is one of them. You guys all know cryptocurrency, digital currency, many different ways there are, currency hacks are being done. Bank and financial services insurance. I think the biggest banks are always looking for, particularly in these days, blockchain and other technologies to look at, right? And that is driving their fear and threat that how we can protect ourselves, right? And credit cards. Almost everyone knows and have credit card, and there are plenty of credit card frauds, scammers, and many different ways, either calls from IRS and other things, and you just swipe the card and you are scammed. Internet, the biggest scams are happening through internet, right? In these days, cryptocurrency is the latest one, right? And honestly, almost every fraud has something with our human nature, how we behave, how we act upon it, right? So we will talk about the outcomes and then eventually how to prevent them.
Thank you, Abid. So without further ado, we now have our script portion of the program. And I know you guys are going to get better and better as time goes on because those outfits are really going to soak in. I want to remind Oz that you do have, well, yes, thank you. So Cowardly Lion. Okay, it's Cowardly Lion has a speaking line.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, you're lovely, but all the script, Cowardly Lion.
Show off my tail.
Okay.
I used to be afraid of the internet. Now I go everywhere sharing my data, passwords, emails, and credit cards.
I'm smarter than the fraudsters. I know what's real. I don't need no stinking training.
I love shopping on the internet to my heart's content.
Unfortunately, I gave these clowns courage, brains, and heart. Now they're internet idiots. I tell them, ignore the fake email return address. It is really from your CFO, and they believe me.
Well, we have some work to do, right? So Wizard, you've given the crew courage, brains, and heart. How has that improved their internet savvy and experience?
Please call me Oz. Anyway, I've given these folks the ability to serve with confidence, spend, abandon, and think they're geniuses. What could possibly go wrong?
Well, that's what we're going to find out. So Cowardly Lion, now that you are imbued with unlimited courage, how do you protect yourself while surfing the internet?
Just called me lying. That cowardly thing is in the past, thanks to Oz.
Okay, Mr. Lion.
I used to be afraid of buying anything on the internet, but now I buy everything on the internet. I have an Amazon account, plus every website you can imagine. Bye bye baby is my motto.
Yes, it is. Tin Man, has the Wizard's heart helped you on the internet?
First, please call me Mr. T. Yes, I love everything about the internet. I go to every site, click every link, and share all my personal thoughts on social media.
Okay, Scarecrow, has the Wizard's brain power supercharged your internet experience?
First, just call me Weedhead. That's my Twitter handle. And yes, I'm brilliant. I know everything about the internet. Why Skynet has nothing on me.
You realize Skynet is fictional, right?
Duh, so am I.
Mr. Oz, with all this knowledge and bravery you've provided, to these folks. Did you include anything related to cybersecurity training to go along with their newfound internet powers?
Again, just Oz. All I did was help them find the powers they already had. After all, it's not like Courage is reckless, his heart leads from emotion, or his brain power has led to internet abandon.
I guess we'll find out. Martina's turn to talk about fraud in ancient Greece, in Egypt.
And Rome.
And, oh, okay. French, she couldn't let the Italians go.
I thought we were gonna slide under the rug.
She had to dig us.
The Greek philosopher Aristotle reported on the fraud surrounding the enactment of Systasia, or solemn shaking off of burdens, in the 6th century BC, which released the Greeks from slavery for debts. Ancient Egypt was cashless until 525 BC. The taxes were still collected in kind, taking the form of either traded goods or forced labor, called corvée. Fraud was a common issue faced by the governor of the day, with tax collectors sometimes being punished quite severely for using inaccurate measure to weigh out quantities of grains to be taxed by the households. They fooled householders into overpaying their taxes, which could then be skimmed. Theft against the state was considered to be particularly heinous and garnered severe penalties. Around the same time, a Greek merchant named Pagastratos, who sailed the Mediterranean, was caught by his ship's crew trying to sink the vessel in an attempt to defraud a type of shipping insurance called bottomley. This let the ship's master use the floating keel and hull of the ship itself to back a loan until the ship's voyage was completed. So in essence, they really only had to bring a ship out, it could be empty or full of goods, and sink it and collect the insurance. Around the same, the practice forced all the risk on the lender. So when the ship sank, the ship's owners never had to pay it back. Many ships were sunk thanks to Herodotus' example. On to the Romans and other Italians. By 6 AD, money was in common use in many parts of the world, and fraud continued to be an issue for many different walks of life. Serio's marine orations attest to multiple thefts and fraudulent collection of tax proceeds by Verres, the governor of Sicily. Not long after that, one of the biggest frauds of ancient times was committed by the Praetorian Guard in 193 AD, when they sold the rights to the Roman throne to the highest bidder for 25 sesterces per soldier. Unfortunately for the buyer, they didn't own it, so in fact, the claim wasn't considered valid.
Yes, would you like to own the throne to Rome? 25,000 sisters. 1,000 times more than you said.
25,000, yeah.
So as you see, fraud is nothing new. I particularly like the sea captain who basically, and Martina and I discussed this, but she said, I don't understand, how did he get money? Well, he took the money and then sank the ship. He never bought anything. Because the idea was to get the money. It wasn't to buy anything. But of course, fraud through history is not easily described or discussed without having a script about it. With our, you don't have to hold that up immediately.
Oh.
Not until you talk. No, go ahead, you can hold it up now because you do go first.
Yes, I was prepared.
Yes, you were. You're an accountant, always prepared. Did you, Mr. Oz, did you ever commit fraud in ancient times?
Yes, I added water to beer and sold it in Babylon. I went to jail because I didn't call it light beer.
Yikes.
I'd be a billionaire now.
Yes, you would be. Scarecrow, any lessons from history you'd like to share?
My great scarecrow told me his straw upgrade was shortchanged by an Egyptian merchant.
What does that mean?
Well, he was weight short of straw, so there is no way he broke that camel's back.
That was pretty bad, wasn't it? I'm going to blame Martina for that. And Lion?
My great something or other.
What's a something or other?
Hey, I got courage, not brains. My great something or other got his tail chopped off or stealing an apple from the market. But we all know lions are meat eaters. Or no, yeah, something.
Metasaurs.
Sorry.
Metasaurs? I told you.
I told you, I got courage, not brains.
Okay, Mr. T. Any stories?
Yes, my great-aunt Tin Man, who was formerly a can of Spam, said that we were originally from Junkatoria.
Is that a country?
No, I think it's on 3rd and Vine near the shipyard. They recycle cars there, crush them up.
You might be part Mercedes. But of course, fraud stops for no one, not even a corny script. So there's so many modern ways that fraud is committed on computers, and the internet, of course, has opened up a huge avenue to your personal information and right into your house. And Abid is going to share with us some of the examples of the different types of programs that attack us.
Yeah, definitely. There are too many examples of cyber threats. You guys have known adwares, like you are seeing ads and click on it, and all of a sudden your computer is, hacked or scanned. You guys are scammed, right? There are spywares. Everything is being watched, just like us, right? And there are different kind of hacking and phishing schemes, right? You get the emails and people try to phish you in many different ways, right? And we are going to share some examples, with the PDF files and other things, right? There are data breaches, and in recent history that we have seen quite a few actually. The Target retail store was one of them. There was a LinkedIn hack. There was, there were quite a few hacks that we have seen. I don't want to name all of those, different companies. I don't know, someone is sitting over here.
Oh, I'll be naming them later a bit, don't worry.
Okay, all right.
Only the top 5.
Yeah. So there are keyloggers. I don't know that you guys are aware of. As soon as you press a key, and that gets logged into your, and they look into it. Particularly, the keyloggers come into picture when they are looking into your passwords, right? As soon as you enter a password, the keys are logged, and somebody is, having your password, and right there, they are gonna hack you. There are quite a few spams. I don't know that there are technical folks over here, but the SQL injection, they do inject the codes in the SQL queries. Like when you are querying, you click of a button simply, and you don't realize people are, sniffing in, and they are injecting SQL queries, and all of a sudden they get the data, but you did not intend, but they got it. Right? So spoofing, cryptojacking, we will be giving some more examples in cryptojacking as well, to go through what really cryptojacking is and how people do leverage and cryptojacking. And monetizing, backdoor, identity thefts, computer viruses. There are quite a few. I can name hundreds of.
You can read them real fast a bit. There's a lot of them. There's about 20 different ways. Go ahead a bit. Move on to the ransomware piece.
So
That's
we will
very
definitely
important.
talk about some social engineering, farming, and trick bots. There are bots in these days who are trying to scam you, and there are too many frauds. And honestly, a human gets involved into the bots a lot later than almost everything is cooked, and they are ready to scam you. So there are obviously quite a few ransom attack. We can have attacks on encrypt your data. How do you protect it? And you obviously can encrypt on your side as well as on the computer side. You have a good company, and they can be encryption on the computer side, right? There are exfiltrate your data, corrupt your backup. They do quite a stuff, right? So companies have the values of their data, right? And they create the backups all the time, either on premises or on the cloud, right? There is the data flowing across all the time. And if they corrupt it, basically that's no value for the company. And that's another fraud, basically. They are trying to harm you, right? So criminals can target a software supplier using its network management packages as a conduit to spread the ransomware through cloud services. How many of you guys must have seen in the past history that there has been quite a few packages of software coming through either Russia or China or some other countries that they have been trying to sniff our communications and companies' communication and their data, right? So there are many ways that the criminals try to hack you. The active since April 2019, the group known as Revel provides a ransomware as a service. Wow, that's a huge ransomware as a service. Just like Amazon is providing all the small services, microservices and everything, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, all like different kinds of services. Now there is a new thing, ransomware as a service. So basically people get ransomware attacks, right? As a service, meaning it develops the network paralyzing software and leases it to so-called affiliates who in fact targets and earn the lion's share of ransoms. Right?
So I'm gonna jump in there, this Revel and other criminal rings like them, software as a service for ransomware. They get 10% of whatever they do. And you're gonna see that they take a lot. The average is what, 500,000?
Yeah, $500,000.
Yeah. So, interesting gig, go ahead.
Yeah. So, as it says, Steve, that average is coming out $500,000 for those who are renting those services, right? And then there are human operated ransomwares, where people are, doing a live when you are doing some things on your computer. Basically, somebody else is watching you, but you don't know that, right? So there are people who are trying to cheat you in many different ways. There are 5 biggest ransomware payouts. University of California at San Francisco, I think they paid $1.14 million. Travelers, they paid $2.3 million. Brentag and Colonial Pipeline, CWP, all of them are in, above $4 million, right? And I have heard recent news that are actually going into a lot of more millions than 4.5 million or 5 million, right? Behind the scene, I
But
thought.
those are the ones we hear about.
Yeah.
There's people that don't advertise
Exactly.
what they had to pay.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve,
Yes?
how are these ransomware payouts made? Is it all crypto transactions?
Yes, it's usually crypto, yeah. And I believe they caught the guys for Colonial Pipeline. They did catch those guys. But, there's this idea that crypto is transparent to the world, and we're gonna talk about it a little bit. It's really not. And you'll see guys who are real advocates of cryptocurrency say, well, it's a public ledger. But what does that mean if the public information is false or fraudulent, right? What does it mean? So it's interesting, and we all remember this one because that affected gas prices for a short period of time last year. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. So I think this is important to discuss about SEO spam. What really SEO spam is, the most popular way to gain financial profit by hacking your website, right? SEO injection can be executed because of software vulnerabilities, outdated plugins, or theme vulnerabilities, and obviously when your admin user password is admin, wow, there are some people who keep the admin or admin 1 or admin 123. Honestly, I have seen so many times in my life that the people, either they have their name or admin or even QWERTY123, right? That is like, those are very easy passwords to guess. So that's what we need to be looking for. When a website has been compromised by an attacker, the attacker can create sub-pages and hide links and keywords into the source code of your site. Okay, so innocently you guys are just clicking on whatever that website is, showing you, but behind the scene there is something else, not the real code that your company has provided you or the company who you are dealing with has provided you. Hackers have put malicious software behind the scene. You click on it, that was your will, but you didn't know what is going on behind the scene, right?
Okay, that's good for that, because I want to add something in real quick.
Yep.
The reason and the way this happens is when people don't keep their software for their websites current. They don't have updated plugins. They don't have proper security on their website. We're going to be talking about passwords later. They also, and I didn't list it here because it was pretty comical, most of it apparently has to do with references to Viagra. I know that sounds weird. But they embed these things in there so that it comes up in sites and it affects your SEO rating for things you don't want, right? You don't want to be popping up for that. But it's very interesting how it's your organization's responsibility or whoever your website support is to make sure their plugins are up to date, because these guys are constantly hacking them. There's no such thing as secure for more than a couple months, because it isn't, because these guys know how to hack stuff. So it's not like fraud is new, right? Oh, yes.
So setting aside the larger companies that have, dedicated IT departments that will manage websites and that kind of stuff. If you are a small shop and you set up a website and it's being hosted by whoever, who's responsible for making sure all those things are up to date?
It all depends on your contract and who. Are you supporting the website? Do you support the code on the website? Is it you? And I say you, I mean your organization.
Well,
so
I set the web, I'm a sole practitioner, I set the website up.
Yeah.
5-6 years ago, and don't really make any changes.
A bit, right down into we'll see if we can hack it. So I'm not trying to give a smart aleck answer, but we've been outsourced. All of our stuff has been outsourced for 20 years. We never even had an email server in our organization. We've always been outsourced. We don't support the software that goes for our website. We have a different organization that wrote it and they support it. Now you want to ask yourself, well, why don't you do it? You guys have programmers and everything. We don't do it because our guys are at client sites and their role, it's actually cheaper for us to pay them $500 a month to do it than for us to have some guy sitting around who doesn't have a lot to do. But the whole point of that is it's their responsibility because that's our contract. And if it's your organization, there's different ways that you're protected. One is you're hiding. Nobody knows who the heck you are. So you're not a target. Why? It's like Dillinger. Why did he rob banks? Because that's where the money is. Why do they go to these bigger organizations? If they hack the Colonial Pipeline, they're going to get $4 million. They hack you, what are they going to get? $20? They're not going to get anything. They're going to say, oh, the hell with you, I'll rewrite it. And again, part of it is, if you go back to what Abid was talking about with the SEO, most websites are static marketing websites.
Right, that's what
Yeah, so that's not where the issue is. The real issue is with commerce sites. And Abid, you want to add something there?
Yeah, I want to add, in particular in these days, most of the companies are moving to either AWS or Azure and GCP, Google Cloud and other services. There are niche environments. If you read the footprints, they tell you that we have a shared responsibility. What really it means? That means they are providing you the infrastructure. That they are responsible for their infrastructure. That is secure, that is not hackable or whatever they are trying to give you the guarantees, right? But on the other side, as soon as you are getting involved, you are inside the infrastructure, what you are using it, what are the services you are using. You have your password, you have your keys, you have your, all different kind of multi-authentication factor, whatever, right? That is your responsibility to protect it. That is your responsibility to have a good password. That is your responsibility not to share your private keys to anyone else, right? That is your responsibility. That's why it is a shared responsibility. You gotta see in between what is their responsibility, what is your responsibility as a company owner, or what is your someone else's responsibility who you have hired, and if you have shared a password with them as a third party or whatever. There are some companies who are getting websites done by third parties, right? So if you need more insights to it, get back to us. We will help you, and we can establish.
Yeah, and that the example that we have, our vendor has admin access to our site, which is on Rackspace in WordPress. But we also have an admin account, and we can control their access. So if there's something that happens that we don't like, we can turn them off. They can't turn us off. But to Bid's point, there's shared responsibility. If they insert or create a page that has a hack in it, that's them. But if I make a change or I have a password that is simple to guess, that's my fault, right? So the responsibility really depends on how you've, Frank, did you have a question? How
Yeah,
you're
finish.
contracted. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so if you were to sort of advise business owners in terms of like, how do I evaluate my external options that you're describing? What would you say they should be looking for in that external vendor? Is there a particular audit they need to have done and produced? Is it certain insurance they need to carry?
Well, there's ISO standards that you could go with. A lot of it, and I'm gonna say this because I've been in this business almost 40 years, you can't go by what they tell you. Because they're gonna tell you, there's some really good answers to questions. I've interviewed hundreds of people in my business, and some of the worst hires I ever made were the best interviews I ever had. And they will tell you what benefits them. So due diligence on your part, get some references from them, make sure it's not their cousin, you know, and ask questions. If you want us to provide you a list of the type of questions to ask, we can provide that. And one side note here, everything we're talking about today has a link to a web page somewhere. And by the way, they are safe, because we clicked on it. And anyone that didn't, you know, like, we have pretty robust virus software and anti-malware software on our machines. We have multiple, that's why my machine runs so slow sometimes. But we have all the links, and we'll share the links with you. So that everything we're discussing up here, like everything Martina's discussing, everything that Abid is saying, and most of what I'm saying, has a link, and we have 2 pages of links at the end where you guys can go, and I can share them with Frank, and you can share them with a group, and you can click on them, because some of them are fascinating. Some of the ways that we're being targeted, and some of the things that are happening that huge companies like Facebook are doing to us, and people don't realize it. It's very interesting, but if you want more information on that, we can provide you.
Great, thank you.
With that, and we might even be able to provide you with a link.
Okay.
But again, it's due diligence. Like, we're using a smaller company. I feel that some of the smaller companies are more responsible. If you use a Cognizant or a WePro, you have no idea who the heck is working on your stuff. You know, and since you are mostly smaller businesses, it makes sense to use an appropriate sized company. All right, well, there was fraud in ancient Rome, fraud in ancient Greece, fraud in ancient Egypt. But you know what? Time marches on, and there was also fraud in the Middle Ages. So, Martina, can you share with us some of the interesting fraud from the Middle Ages?
Yeah. Sir Isaac Newton, who we all know, was made Master of the Royal Mint in 1699, a position he held until his death in 1727. One famous incident that kept Sir Isaac busy during his tenure at the Mint was the fight against forgers, especially William Challoner, a man who estimated his own forgery output to be around 30,000 British pounds. That's equivalent to about 2 million in 2022. That's one person. It took Newton almost 2 years to catch up with Challoner, and he was hung in 1699. At the other end of Sir Isaac's career, he became the victim of another common type of fraud in those days when he invested in the South Sea bubble of 1720. Now think about it. He was the one investigating other people, and he got involved in a big fraud scheme. So I guess it happens to everybody. It can happen to anybody. The South Sea bubble.
It's not like he was a genius.
Yeah.
Or was he?
You think, really, he was the one that was doing the fraud investigation. The South Sea bubble is one of the earliest, largest, and most studied instances of investment manias and crashes, according to the Royal Society. Sir Isaac was just one of the many known figures who lost their fortunes. At the bubble's height, copycat startups pitched all manner of unlikely ventures. Anything with stocks in it flew and flew, no matter how silly the basic scheme. One company planned to shoot square cannonballs. Another company wanted money for carrying on an undertaking of great advantage, giving no hint to what the advantage was. It still raised 2,000 British pounds. All of these ventures, of course, collapsed in a spectacular fashion.
Thank you, Martina. Boy, does that sound familiar? Does that sound like a stock market craze of the last 20 years. Some of this hits home because I'm older than most of the people here, except Rob. I'm older than him too. So I've seen a lot of weird things, and I've had a lot of strange phone calls from scammers. One of my favorites was about 10 years ago. It's amazing how they get your cell phone number. They get your cell phone number. So as soon as it's out there, forget it, it's out there. When you put it anywhere on the internet, it's going to be out there. So the guy calls me and says, I have this investment scheme. This relates to the last example Martina just gave. I said, what is it? He said, I can't tell you. I was like, well, how do I know to invest? He said, well, you have to give me the money first. I said, really? I have to give you the money first, and then you'll tell me? He said, yes. I said, okay, well, let me call the FBI. I'll get back to you. Don't take the bait. And another one, which was probably worse, but it was in the news, but we're not going to talk about it in too much detail today. So we opened our UK affiliate about 10 years ago. We do e-discovery work in the EU and some other services associated with it. And it was a pain in the neck to open a bank. Apparently, all the terrorists are sitting right in this room. Okay, we're all terrorists. The real ones, apparently, they can't find. But they treat us like we're terrorists. So we had to literally, went to one bank, couldn't even make it happen. We ended up going to HSBC. We had to open an account here in the US, put $50,000 in the account so that we could open an account in the UK to pay the people who were working for us. Now, about 2 months later, I get a call on my cell phone. And it's a guy with a Middle Eastern accent telling me he has a special message for me from HSBC. But he can't give it to me unless I share my account manager name with him. On my cell phone. So, being Italian, and extremely cynical, and being beaten as a child regularly, I realized this was bullshit. So, being Italian, I wanted to have fun with it. So I said, really? I said, well, you work for the bank, right? He said, yes. I said, then you must know the name. He said, yes. I said, well, tell me and I'll tell you if it's right. And he said, it doesn't work that way. I said, yeah, it doesn't work at all. Bye. About 2 months later, HSBC, there was a huge investigation that got busted for giving information to organized gangs in the UK, right from the bank. So it happens, and it's going to happen to you. It's just a matter of time. I've had even other ones that we can discuss further. Thank you, Martina, for that, because you know what? The most important thing about this presentation today is that the cowardly lion gets to speak. I'm sorry, lion, because he's not cowardly anymore. So our next item, and we're going to have a demo later, which we'll share some actual emails with you guys from our company, which are quite fascinating. But first, Mr. Lion, do you like spam?
Yes. That's how I order my rhino spam from Africa.
Rhino spam?
It's delicious.
I think he needs annoying emails and such.
I plan to donate my body to the Spam Museum when I die.
Wait, all those emails and text messages I get for the highest quality straw? I never know who those companies are.
They know you use straws, so they tempt you with straw deals.
And canned rhino.
But wait, how is spam different from phishing?
I never caught a can of spam when fishing.
No, phishing emails, pretending to be someone else and trying to get information from you.
My aunt thinks she's Queen of England.
Not the same thing. So, wow, I didn't realize this thing was so sensitive with my big nose. I really blew a storm there, didn't I? All right, so this is the weird part about doing presentations. I need to click on something and display it on the screen. And of course, I'm going to have to stop this presentation. Come on, you got it. All right, I'm going to stop this briefly because I could not embed these in the presentation. So here's an email we got. Payment advice. Oh yeah, baby. They're paying me. They're paying me, and it's from Microsoft. And it's a solution. They've been verified. Who the hell is that? I don't know who that is. Don't click on those HTML links. The importance is high. It's high to them. And if you click on it, you're done. This is more of an example of spam. A combination of spam and phishing. So we have a web page. The funny thing is we had a guy who used to work for us named Joe Miller. That's the funniest thing about this. But anyway, went to our website and entered into our contact page a termination notice for our domain. Ended up tearing that. That's all fake. They need it in 24 hours. It's fake. That went to our, so we have a web page and it sends it through the web page to us. That's fake. Again, another one. Now this is just pure spam because they're telling me how to make my website more efficient. We actually had to go into our program and block that guy. He did it every day for a year. And our daughter works in the company. She finally said, "Dad, you gotta shut this thing off." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm still a programmer, I guess." Now this is more just spam. And I put this up here because we have a lawyer coming up later. I don't know who these people are. I don't know why I'm getting this email. But we do e-discovery work. So somehow they dug into our backgrounds and they found out who we were and they sent it directly to me. This is a real company, by the way. It's just spam. That's all. It's not like they're fake. Office Street. Oh my God, your password expired. You ever get one of these? Now that's not as good a focus as it could be, but it's the point is. Let me see if I can make it bigger. This, obviously, we're real. That's a real company. Has nothing to do with the email. You can't see this. This first one is a real company. Has nothing to do with the email. There's a redirect to the spam site. Now, the weird thing about that, that's from one company. Oh my goodness. The same thing. Exact same email. There's a reference code here. It's the same code. That's the exact same code. The only reason this is highlighted, and I apologize, I didn't realize it was going to be readable. Same thing. Real company, redirect to a different site. Looked real. Ransomware as a service. Those guys got that code from somebody who sold it to them. Now here's the weird part. The first one, you can do a who is. You ever use who is? If you ever want to know what a website comes from, type in who is, and it'll give you the information. So this guy from the one, that's who he is. Now I don't know how true all of that is, but that's the email associated with their website. That's the spam site. Now the other spam guy is a little more sophisticated. I was ready to go scroll this. Does this work? This is redacted for privacy. What about my privacy? I don't want your garbage coming to my email. How do you protect yourself? It's just amazing, right? I'm trying to think if there's any other one. The other ones are all very similar. So as you see,
Hey, Steve?
yes.
So when you get an email like that, what should you be doing with it?
Well,
Do you forward it to your IT department? Do you just delete it? Do you delete it from the deleted folder once it's deleted?
well, so that's the demo one. Let me go. Well, that's the interesting thing about it. It depends on what it is. Most of them you should ignore and delete them. Or forward, if you have an IT group, they probably saw it. because almost all email comes through it. But what we do is we have an internal process where if you get one, you have to forward it so that we can look at it. But it's about training. It's about training. This is how those guys, those examples are how they get into your organization because of lack of training. Hey, stop playing with that. You're interrupting my soliloquy.
I did not hear that.
Yeah, you sound like a windstorm. So the whole point of that is that it all depends on what it is, and some of it is almost freakishly strange. So I got one from a dark web account that wanted cryptocurrency, implying that they had video of me doing things, and I'm not a congressman, so it wasn't me. I talked to one of our IT guys, and he said it's pure phishing trying to get you to respond. Do not respond. Don't say, don't you ever contact me. Make it look like you never got it. You can share it with IT if you have the ability to block emails. We have email blocking. We use Office 365. We just go in, block the URL. Now, these guys are smart. They constantly change their URLs. So you have a choice to make. And I've seen these choices, and it's much less frequent than it was 20 years ago. There were companies that used to have whitelists. Well, they're a pain in the neck. Because you give a guy your business card, he says, yeah, send me an email, and then you get a kickback, and you got to call him, and like, yeah, man. No. Blacklists are what everybody uses now because whitelists make it too hard to even transact business. But it means you're constantly fighting the battle with the blacklists. And on the example I gave where the guy went to the website, we went into our WordPress account and we have the ability to block it. And I have at least 20 in there. We have at least 20, because they're constantly spamming us with bots. We had them change the CAPTCHA to see if that would stop it. And CAPTCHA is a little security feature. You know, you have to enter, prove you're not a robot thing. And they were still doing it. So now we just block them. But yeah, I would share it with IT and don't ever respond. Don't ever respond. There's no upside to responding. So the reason I wanted to talk a little bit and add some insight, yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Piggybacking off of what Frank had said, how about the unsubscribe piece? Does that kind of get you into their environment?
Well, you're already in there if you got it.
Okay. So
Right, so.
between deleting and unsubscribing.
And from what we've seen, rarely, like the real spam, like that one spam I showed you from a real company, that's just marketing spam.
Mm-hmm.
That unsubscribe will work. But the other stuff doesn't have an unsubscribe,
Okay.
generally. It just doesn't, because they don't care about you subscribing or not subscribing. What they care about is, you know, they have your information. Did you have another question?
Yeah, a question, you know how Elon Musk is taking over Twitter, and he
Okay.
says he's getting rid of the bots.
Okay.
How is he gonna do that?
Well, he doesn't own the platform. Now, when he says bots, so, and I'm not an expert on what he's going to do. Anybody who says they're an expert on what Elon Musk is going to do is high. So they don't know what he's going to do. My guess is that what I've heard the most is they're going to go to a subscription model, which means you're going to have to pay to be on it. And the subscription's less about paying, because I guarantee it'll be like $1.99 a month. It's not going to be expensive, but it will force you to identify who you are. And the way that it works now is anybody can go on there. And so they create all these fake accounts, and part of the issue with Twitter, just generally, is its model, and we're going to talk a little bit about Twitter and Facebook later, if we ever get to it. But we're going to talk a little bit about that later. But it's their model to make money is to take your data and sell it, or make you see ads that you couldn't care less about. You bought a can of Spam, next thing you know, you got cans of Spam advertisements everywhere. So that's their model, and my guess is he's going to do away with that model, because that's the only way he gets rid of the bots. How are you going to know if something's real? And he's not, unless he does a subscription. So we'll see if it works. But he's a brilliant man, and he just bought something that's going to drain him of billions of dollars, but he's got it. He should have bought that 65 Cadillac.
Just a quick question. I was thinking about the unsubscribe comment, and to me, isn't that a risk? Because couldn't
It could be a risk.
Couldn't that unsubscribe button not be an unsubscribe button? Couldn't that?
If it starts asking you questions, you just exit out. The whole point of not responding is that you want it to look as if you never got contact.
Well, that's what I mean,
And then you can go in, if you know it's spam, just go in into your filters and filter it out, and you'll never see it again. You don't have to do unsubscribe. I personally would only unsubscribe from things I actually subscribe to. Right.
Have you seen fraudsters try to use the
I haven't.
unsubscribe button? As
I
a
have not seen
ploy?
that, but maybe a bit has. Go ahead, a bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna respond to some of these questions. Yes, I have seen it. They have actually put a malicious software just behind that link. When you try to subscribe it, that takes your identity away basically. I have seen it. They have actually hidden the code under the cross sign. That really means close it, but they have hidden that code. So that means when you try to close it, never close via that way. If you really want to close it, use computer shortcut keys and control alt delete and try to remove it from your whatever the softwares or pieces are running or services are running on your computer, right? Try to look into those shortcuts in place of try to click on there, whatever they have presented you. Okay. Going back to the question from there, that yes, you can actually inform the IT department if you have a big enterprise. As a matter of fact, they are already scanning all the communication going through automatically via their spam softwares or blockers or antiviruses, etc. And there is a feature, I don't know you guys have realized or not, but try to right click on it and it does give you the options, security option. It calls the security options. It gives you 3 different menus. One is block it, the second one is report as phishing, and the third one is report and block together, right? So try to do that way. So not only
And a bit you're talking about in your email application, like
most of them
Outlook.
come through emails.
Yeah.
So that email can be basically taken care of. That is not only that email chain is blocked, but most of the time the email entity by itself, whichever the organization it is coming from, can be blocked, right? So in these days, hackers are becoming so sophisticated. Behind the scene, there is only one entity they are using it, but they have written algorithms and bots. We call it bots, right? They impersonate so much. All of the links, all of the IDs that they are representing you is totally different next time, but behind the scene, the content inside the email is still the same. Like abc.com, then 123.com, or 23andme.com, or whatever, they change their entities, but behind the scene, it is initiated from one computer.
So a bit, the example I showed, what I did is I went to the link and right-clicked it to show it. And you should always do that. But notice what it did. The first piece was real, and you had to read all the way through the link. 2/3 through the link is where it did the redirect. Bottom line is, I don't click on anything. If I didn't do it, I don't want to click on it. And if I am going to click on it, I right-click it first, or find a way to see the link before I click on it. Go ahead, Martina.
And because I guess I have I can ask you a question anytime. Being in HR, one of the things that Steve taught me, which I do all the time now, is look who sent me the email. I said, do you know this person? Like, who is this? If you see something that doesn't make any sense to you, then you can't click anything on it, I mean,
And
it's
always
one
look
thing
at the
just
full
to-
email address.
Yeah, look at the full email address and think, is this someone from one of my vendors, one of my accounts that I know? Do I know this person? If I don't, why are they contacting me? And what do they want from me?
The favorite HR ones are, Martina, I need to change my direct deposit. And then you look, and it says the person's name who's in our company, but the email isn't his name.
Yeah. In addition to Martinez, they impersonate so much. You seem like Donald David Jr. and Jr. Jr. dot and Jr. You guys will think, oh, this is my friend Donald David Jr. Right? But it is truly not. Just look into every piece, and also you can hover over the link and see that is gibberish and something else that you don't recognize that is a legit link, then avoid it. That's the simple way.
Yeah, just work at it.
It's training. Bottom line is training. That's why training is so important. And our insurance company, our cybersecurity insurance has gone from $5,000 a year to $25,000 a year. We've never even had anything close to a breach. Doesn't matter. There's so many breaches. And what's insurance? It spreads the risk. So we're paying for guys who don't, who don't take the precautions they should. So I'm not going to read the quotes from 1984 from George Orwell. I'll just leave them up there and I'll make some comments. Now, if this doesn't sound like Alexa, I don't know what does. And the difference between this and 1984, when it was written in 1948, was they didn't have the technology we have now. How brilliant was this man? He was a brilliant person, and he saw a future that's dystopian, but it's kind of scary when you look at it. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about cryptocurrencies and bubbles, and we're talking asset bubbles here. And non-fungible tokens, crypto fraud, Web 3.0. And then, of course, we'll have some, we have an enormous number of links here. We have at least 25 links that, again, as I said, Frank can share with you all. NFTs, anybody know what an NFT is? You must know. Tech dude. What is it?
Actually, or what does it stand for?
What does NFT stand for?
Non-fungible token.
So what does that mean?
Bullshit.
So, thank you for presaging that. It's something that's usually built on a blockchain. And although I wouldn't call it BS, I would call it one step below BS, because you're going to lose money on it potentially, and you don't want that. There are cryptocurrencies, and they're real, but ask yourself, what sits behind the cryptocurrency? So, of course, you've all heard of Bitcoin, the premier cryptocurrency. And we're going to have a little graph on Bitcoin shortly. Ethereum, by the way, there's something called Ethereum Classic and Ethereum. You know the difference? Who knows the difference? Ethereum Classic got hacked. Wait a minute, blockchain's secure, you can't hack it. These are programmers. I started programming in 1984. Programmers make mistakes. Somebody made a mistake in the Ethereum Classic blockchain in the code, and someone was able to insert code into it and get money transferred to a different place. So don't buy Ethereum Classic, by the way. It's already been hacked. Tether. Now, Tether is what's called a stable coin. Now, you guys might have heard that term, stable coin. It means it's tied to the value of the dollar. It's worth $1. And the weird thing about these is they claim to have some sort of assets in the background, but it's crypto. You have no idea what their real assets are. Binance, and you've probably heard of Binance. It was originally issued as a way for the Binance website to give people credits for using the website. And now it's turned into its own form of cryptocurrency. I'm going to speed through these, stay on track here. US dollar is a stable coin. It's called USD, but USD coin. It's not government issued. Solana is a new one. Again, the other difference with these is there's unlimited coins and there's limited coins. So Bitcoin has a limited number that are available that will ever exist. And Solana is another one of them. So what's the value of that coin versus one that has unlimited? It's the same thing as the inflation of a currency by printing too much. That's why Bitcoin keeps its value. That's also why Bitcoin is destroying the planet with CO2 emissions. Because for you to break the code to get a Bitcoin and mine it, you guys have heard the term mining Bitcoins, takes an enormous amount of energy. Enormous. There are coal plants in Russia, that's all they do. They don't even, you're going to freeze this year because I got to get some Bitcoin. So there's a lot of different coins. None of them are truly stable, as you will see. And what I mean by that is they vary in value. My favorite one, and you guys have heard of this because Elon Musk, our favorite billionaire psychopath, promoted Dogecoin. She's young, so she knows. She knows. How much Dogecoin do you own?
I know many.
Oh, okay. Oh, but it was a joke. And look, I'm a programmer. We're always making jokes. They're like, hey man, I want to make some dog currency. Next thing you know, the guys are worth billions. It's worth $19 billion. A dog. Sound a little bit familiar, like the 1720 South Sea, we can sell anything, right? If we have enough money, anybody will buy it. So there's crypto exchanges, and I actually have an account on Coinbase, which is best for beginners because I don't know what the hell I'm doing with it. Crypto.com has the best mobile app. Gemini has the best security. Altcoins is Bitmart. Altcoins means ones you probably won't even be able to sell. Kraken is more institutional. And if you go and look at some of these companies and their valuations, like Coinbase just went public last year, the valuations are quite enormous because they hedge you against the value of the coins because it's an exchange. So it doesn't matter if the coin goes up in value or down in value, they're getting their transaction fee. So if you're going to play that market, look at just playing the exchanges. Best for Bitcoin, Cash App, and decentralized exchange is BISC, which is funny. It's a funny name. So, Abid, why don't you talk a little bit about crypto jacking and crypto fraud?
Yeah, sure. So as much of the younger generation has been involved in all of these social engineering kind of stuff, and crypto is one of them. Everything is being digital. And one of the mechanisms these guys are using called crypto jacking, and it really is a malicious software which use a different computer to mine the cryptocurrency. I don't know you guys have seen it, but there are quite a different software packages in these days where they lure you in for, okay, we are going to be sharing all the crypto mining with you. Like, your computer, only thing is that you have a computer and we are going to use your computer power, right? That's really as a crypto jacking. Sometimes you know and you willingly have accepted it, sometimes you don't know. And somebody has put a software package on your machine, and your machine is behind the scene working. And you guys realize, oh my God, my machine is like slow, crazy slow, and it's humming. And that's where you guys need to think about. Maybe somebody has done something to my machine, and behind the scene, it is working harder to mine the currency, which you are not going to own, but somebody is using your machine. That's a crypto jacking, right? And there are obviously the ways to protect it as well. So you can use ad blockers. Crypto jacking scripts are often run on your machine, and those are embedded via web ads or some others, right? So you just click on that embedded links, and behind the scene is a crypto jacking software package, right? And that deployed on your machine. Unknowingly, you guys are being part of that whole chain of crypto mining, right? So, and good part is that even though you turned off your machine, right? And sometimes you are sleeping, but your machine is still cranking fan, and they are actually mining while you are sleeping.
And there are software packages that are add-ons to your browsers that will block it. I just added, when I saw this one, I added miner block to mine because I'm thinking our machines were running a little hot, but we didn't have anything on from this. That's probably because they're new. And you have to just be careful and be aware. Don't click on links, like Abid said. If you don't know what it is, don't click on it. If someone says unsubscribe and you didn't subscribe, just delete it and then block it. If you never subscribed, how did they get your information, right? And the same thing, you just don't click on things. And when we talk about crypto, you hear crypto theft, right? And you hear the advocates of cryptocurrency. It's secure, it can't be stolen. Well, why is it always being stolen? Well, Ben, why don't you tell us why?
Yeah, definitely. Before we go there, I do want to stress upon much of the technical aspect of why and how you guys can protect, right? Number one is that much of their script are written in JavaScript, and JavaScript has multiple versions of it. And if you disable the JavaScript on your
browser,
that will protect you. That means those scripts are not run behind the scene, right? There is a small gear button on the top. You can actually go into it and disable the JavaScript, right? And there are other industry standards. You can install the browser extensions to block those crypto scripts or crypto, or even any pop-up blockers or anything such which comes through your Internet Explorer or your Edge or your Google Chrome or any of the Explorer you guys are using. I think in these days companies are making a very good effort to provide those tools to the users community to make sure that you guys are protected. Okay, so that is. There is called a crypto bridge problem. I think Steve did talk about it a little, how it got stolen. Really, it is that when they are transferring one crypto, for example, Bitcoin to other Ethereum, right? It is just like pegging against the currencies, a dollar against Japanese yen, or dollar against euro, or something like that, right? Similarly, when they want to buy Ethereum and using the crypto account which owns a Bitcoin, that's where the bridge problems happen. They are trying to convert one currency to the other currency, and that's a bridge between. And that's where hackers get involved, and they bridge and steal your money.
They hack the bridge, and it's exactly like two banks transferring money on an armored car. And why would you rob the bank when you can rob the armored car? And that's what they do. They basically hack the bridges and they steal the money when you go to transfer it. We got to speed up a little bit. So let's jump right to Web 3.0 because I think that's interesting.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Steve.
Okay, I'll do Web 3.0. So Web 3.0 is something new. It has to do with NFTs. It has to do with this concept that programmers always have of libertarian freedom, right? They want to be able to do whatever the hell they want to do on the internet. Now, the problem with that is you always have bad actors. Well, Web 3.0 is the programmers taking back the internet. So Web 2.0, which you can think of as Web 2.0, is what? Well, that's Facebook, that's Google, that's companies, Twitter, that have monetized the internet for their own purposes. It's not free. Nothing's free. Is Facebook free? No. You think you could pay for it per se, but it's not free. So they've monetized it as would be expected of large corporations. They found a way, Web 2.0. Well, Web 3.0 is these programmers coming out and saying, we're going to control the web, and we're going to do things decentralized, and we're going to do what we want. The problem with that is that it's leading to an enormous amount of fraud. And the fraud is associated with what? NFTs. So we're going to talk a little more about this when we talk about NFTs and the value of NFTs. But the bottom line of it is where we were. Web 2.0 with big corporations, now it's the Wild West with Web 3.0, which is, hey, I'll sell you this picture that's computer generated for $1 million, and people are buying it. People are paying money. And what are they paying it with? Bitcoin! Yeah, so the whole crypto universe is morphing into what is really becoming a speculation model.
Hey, Steve.
Everything becomes speculative.
Just curious, have you guys heard of a company called Helios Lending? I just read about them. Apparently they're the first publicly traded crypto bank in the United States that will allow a borrower to borrow US dollars and use
Kraken actually has a bank too associated with it.
Okay.
Kraken is the one exchange that has a bank. And I have not heard of them, but they're obviously new. So what they're trying to do is create, banks have enormous advantages over every other business, banks and insurance companies, as you guys probably realize. I mean, the Medici got rich because they were a bank, right? I mean, if you want to get rich, be a banker. But they're pretending that they're going to put some controls on there, but Web 3.0 is going to bypass all that stuff. This stuff never even gets to a bank. This is pure, Wild West speculation on the internet. And the programmers are taking back control away from the big companies. Now, that doesn't mean it's of great value to us, it just means you have to be careful. And this type of fraud is fraud that you participated in, because you went there, you bought that thing, you thought it was of value. This isn't them scamming you, this is you scamming yourself. You know, this is, again, 1720, well, I'll buy that, it'll be worth more next week. And the other thing is, the thing that really drives this is something called fear of missing out, right? FOMO, fear of missing out. Oh my God, it's gonna go up, I better buy it, I better get it now. And then you have all these celebrities buying it, I won't even read their names because, you know, they get enough attention. But it's just, it's like celebrity spokesman. The biggest stars in Hollywood, the rappers and everybody, these people are diving in, they're younger. They're your generation. And the typical scam is, hey, you win or not? You're gonna miss out, right? And you guys do forensic accounting. How many clients have you had that came to you and said, look what I did? And you said, why'd you do that? And they're like, because I'm greedy and stupid. Now, there was an interesting scam, and it does happen, tax fraud in the UK, where they created a bunch of fake invoices and defrauded the government in the UK of millions of dollars. But they did catch them, because at some point, you get a forensic auditor in there, you get an accountant, and they say, who the hell is this company? They don't even exist. And you gave them a VAT rebate. I mean, they got caught, but they shouldn't be caught. So we're gonna keep moving along here because we're running a little behind. This is the first time we've done this presentation, and we actually cut it in half. It looks like I'm gonna have to cut it some more because I'm not sure we'll get to the end, because we have to leave time for the lawyer. She took time out of her day, and although, you know, you probably don't wanna hear a lawyer talk, she can, and she speaks very well. Although she'll keep the mask on, so we don't have to see who she is.
Take it off for that.
You're gonna take it off for that? All right, so in this respect, when we talk about this Web 3.0, it's very speculative and it creates bubbles. So Martina's going to talk to us about one of the most famous bubbles in history.
In 1636, according to an 1841 account by Scottish author Charles Mackay, the entirety of Dutch society went crazy over exotic tulips. Yes, just the flower. As Mackay wrote in his wildly popular Memoirs of Extraordinarily Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds, as prices rose, people got swept up in a speculative fever, spending up to a year's salary on rare bulbs in hopes of selling them for a profit. Mackay dubbed the phenomenon tulipomania, a golden bait hung temptingly out before the people, and one after another they rushed to the tulip marts like flies around a honey pot, wrote Mackay. Nobles, citizens, farmers, mechanics, seamen, footmen, maidservants, even chimney sweeps, and old-clothed women dabbled in tulips. When the tulip bubble suddenly burst in 1637, so it's 1636 to 1637, Mackay claimed that it had wreaked havoc on the Dutch economy. The tulip price index from 1636 to...
So Martina, we have it up on the screen now, the tulip price index. Look, does that look like anything else that could be happening?
Or any other bubble that we've seen recently?
Now Bitcoin was interesting. If you watch, it's pretty stable for a long period of time. And then the Fed starts printing money, and this thing starts spiking. I don't know where it's going to go. It has probably better scenarios than most cryptocurrencies because it was the first big one, and they have a limited number of them. But it's a bubble, guys. And our asset bubble is popping because the Fed is going to be taking $90 billion a month off the table and raising interest rates. The next thing that is, to me, probably more disturbing, and I don't know if any of you have heard of Bored Apes Yacht Club. It's an NFT, non-fungible token, created by several guys. The one guy's internet name is No Sass. The other guy's name is Emperor Tomato Ketchup. They paid artists $40,000 to create 10,000 of these. Just think of that, there's 10,000 of those things. Some of these are worth over $1 million. I wouldn't even, I said 40,000, would you pay? I mean, really? Is that worth money? We actually hosted Ape Fest in 2021 in New York City. Had a Halloween party on a 1,000-person yacht. The founders made $22 million in less than a year. And of course, what does that mean? The artist got $40,000 for all of them. The artist didn't make any money. The crypto guys made all the money. The guys who created the site made all the money. Now, these NFTs are proliferating. They're all over the place. There's different ones. I actually just joined a site that allows me to create NFTs. I did it just to see how it worked. And I can create NFTs that I can then sell. The problem with NFTs, there's problems with it. So let's Jack Dorsey's first tweet, which I don't know if it's still worth it, but it was sold for $2.9 million. The first tweet on Twitter. There was another site, the site that actually sold that, shut down because the CEO said they had no way of telling who owned what. People were buying things from people that didn't own them. Well. And how many of these, well, look right here, I already have 6 of these. Are they mine? As far as I'm concerned, they are. I sure wouldn't pay 5 cents for any of them. So Web 3.0, guys, is the Wild West, and just be very careful. So one of the other things we wanted to talk about, since you guys are forensic accountants, we want to talk about how NFTs are used for money laundering. So Ted, why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. So there are definitely many different ways that they steal the money from you, right? And one of them, we are going from crypto to digital and NFTs, money laundering schemes, right? How the fraudsters are becoming artists, important, right? What they do is they create, just like Steve was showing before, that they create a pixel to pixel, right? A single gray pixel sold for $1.4 million, right? The gray box at the top of the linked article is not a picture failing to load. It is an artwork, right? Meanwhile, these low pixel 24 by 24 images of funky looking guys and girls, which are called crypto punks, right? Are, according to their creators, the first NFTs. They are generated algorithmically, means the programs are generating them, right? And honestly, it literally takes them maybe 5 seconds or 10 seconds. But those are being sold for millions of dollars, right? Because you guys are buying each pixel, and that pixel, is a small dot on the entire thing, right? So, but at the same time, that risk is something disdainful about these purported work of art. Fraudsters can create similar works by programming the required algorithm without too much of a trouble. So it is easily can be done, right? So somebody else can get up and do the similar algorithm, and they can do the same exact thing, showing, oh, it is a legit, but it is not legit, right? So that's one of the ways they are using crypto funds. There is another way, create identity fraud is easier than ever in this digital world, thanks to the digital world we are living in, right? Fraudsters can steal identities or artificially create them. It takes a little work, but with more and more services being digital, it is not that hard to fake an identity and to give it a live on Facebook, Instagram, or with a few well-placed credit applications. Even in real life, fraudsters can create months and years worth of identities that are completely made up. By using bots, to create digital art and ascribing them to fake identity that hides behind nickname, you can achieve nearly peak anonymity, right? So I remember that somebody I did not know, but they create a fake Facebook ID, and honestly, I fell for it that, oh, it seems like that's my friend, but it was not my friend, right? They created so much of all the history of him, all the history, whatever the pictures and everything they downloaded or whatever they did, they created such a big similar profile that I fell for it. Thank God I did not do anything, I did not pay anything or any such, but those are the people who make you pay for, oh, I am in trouble, pay me, whatever, right?
What can you do? What can you do when you find out, okay, here it's fake? Is there anybody you can turn that information over to
Yes.
follow up?
Well, first of all, you should contact them. Martina just got a text from a friend of ours asking for gift cards for his niece.
Right.
At 7:30.
It's 7:30 on a Sunday, and Martina starts laughing,
Yep.
uses an expletive. What the hell is this? Let's put that out. And I said, what is it? And she said, Jim just sent me this weird Facebook
No, he
message.
said, can you help me? That's what the first.
Yes, and then she responded, and
Maybe
here,
what?
his
Yeah.
Facebook was hijacked. It wasn't a fake profile.
It was in the messenger, so it was a private message, so it was someone I
And
knew.
it went through Facebook right to her, and so I actually called him. And I was like, Jim, what's going on? He's like, oh, I was hacked. I said, and I'm gonna tell her, if you get hacked, you tell all your friends you've been hacked. This isn't about pride. This is about them getting ripped off because you didn't tell them. I said that to him, Jim, why didn't you tell anybody? Oh, well, my wife put it on Facebook. It's like, no, you've got to tell the people, hey, and within an hour, his wife had told everybody, hey, Jim's site got hacked. But to Abid's point, they're either creating fake identities or they're stealing identities. And you have to be aware of it. And then what else you do? You contact your lawyer, potentially, if it's business related, or personal and you're really worried about the impact. Or, contact one of the FBI hotlines or something. The local police probably aren't going to be of help anyway. But the important thing is that you talk to, you tell people you've been hacked and you talk to your lawyer to make sure what next steps are. Because you don't know what it means. How many people sent this person that Jim was impersonating Jim, how many people sent gift cards? Now, I'm being cynical and Italian. I told her, wait, I'm going to ask him where he lives. So I can send, I already have 10 of these $500 gift cards. Can I just send them to your address? That's what I wanted to do, but we realized, what did I say earlier? Don't respond. You don't respond. Although she did, what's going on? Then he sent some more information. That's when we called Jim. We're like, Jim, this isn't right. So just be aware of that. We're going to skip ahead here because we're getting a little behind. And a lot of it's because we were talking about questions. So our next script, and you guys are probably so happy that we're finally back. You sleeping over there? No. Can I make you sleepy? So, who stole my NFT? Lion, do you own any NFTs?
NF what?
Non-fungible tokens. You ever hear of Bored Apes? I just had that up in the screen.
No, but I'm becoming one bored lion.
Those are the guys selling, silly artist crypto investments, right?
Yes.
I bet those artists got rich.
Nope. 40,000 went to the artists.
Those heartless bass fishers.
I like the scam, I need investment.
Beware the NFT. Buy a tulip.
That's right. Buy a tulip. Again, Alexa, can you hear me?
Plug your Alexa.
Here's the problem with this quote. There's something happening in social media. They're starting to give you suggestions of what to say. You can just click on it. Do they know what we're thinking? Do they know enough about you to know your next response? And how lazy are we going to be? I'm looking at the youngest person in the room. How lazy are the next generation's going to be that they won't even type their own response? Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I didn't even have to type. kind of scary, guys, but we have to keep moving here. So the real question is, why is it so easy for them to get your information? So I want to do an experiment, and since I've been picking on the youngest person in the crowd, you're going to participate with me. We have a special gift. Oh, let's show you the gift. There it is. Look at that. Looks like a Christmas gift. So how are you?
Great, how are you?
I'm good. What's your name?
My name's Yen.
Yen. What's your full name, Yen?
My full name is Nguyen Yi Vu Nguyen.
Perfect. You have to spell that for me. Where do you live?
Good. I live in Philadelphia.
Well, I have a gift. I need your address so I can send it to you. Ooh! See? Ooh is the right answer. Do you have any hobbies?
I have quite a few.
Boy, she's tough. Did you take the training before you came to class? I think you did. What kind of jewelry do you like?
Everything.
Everything. That's what I like. So imagine you've shared this information and it goes out on Facebook with, how many people are on Facebook a bit? I don't even know. I don't follow it. I don't even have an account.
Billions.
Billions?
Yeah.
Billions. Okay, let's say 2% of those people are criminals. Let's say 1%. 10 million if it's a billion. 10 million criminals. And you're putting all that information right out on Facebook. So to a bit's point, they got his friend's information from somewhere and they faked his identity. Don't share information. So, yes?
One of my pet peeves is when I see friends of mine, because you can see where your friends respond, when they respond to what is supposedly a radio station on Facebook asking, what was the first concert you went to?
Oh.
And I send them a private note. I'm like, in other words, are you stupid?
Yes.
You know, and I see it every day.
Right, and they ask you your secret questions, right? Banks do it, everybody does it.
Right, but then I know the ones who are wise to it because they'll answer, you know, what's your favorite sport? And they'll say fishing, but they'll spell it with a PH, you know, so they're wise. But it is one of the things that scares me because people just don't think about that.
So we're going to talk a little bit about password systems, and we're running a little late, but go ahead.
So, I mean, it's becoming impossible to transact business too today without providing information. How do you
Well,
handle
it
that?
depends on who you're providing the information to, and that's my point. Like, is Amazon safe? Amazon's probably got great security, as does Google, but it doesn't mean it's safe.
Yeah, but every time you call the bank or call the credit card company or, you know, transact with a brokerage account, you have to give information.
Exactly.
Proving who you are, and that information is out there, everybody has it.
So what I do, I have my own version of a password manager, which is an encrypted file on my machine. It must be encrypted. Don't just have some file on your machine. And in it, I answer questions with all the wrong answers. What high school did you go to? That's not right. It's not real. You know, what's your favorite color? Whatever, pick it. What's your mother's maiden name? Do not put the real thing there, but make sure you keep track of it if you don't. And then they'll never be able to get real information. And if you really want to be a jerk, put some profanities in there just to mess with them. But just don't. And one time I realized I had put something like poop in one of them. I don't know why I did that. And then I had to have my password reset and I had to call them. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Martina, we're going to skip that next part.
Okay.
Go right to this. We got to leave some time. So identity theft and fraud, these are different types of fraud. And you just see exponentially that fraud complaints have stayed kind of the same percentage-wise, but identity complaints are just increasing almost every year. Those are consumer complaints, I'm sorry. The identity is the green one. People are stealing people's identities like crazy. Don't give me your address. Don't share things you don't have to. To the point about business, we have an office and we have our own home. If I put office stuff in a lot of places simply because it's an office, I just figure that's somewhat safer, but nobody's safe. If you think you're safe, that's when you're going to get in trouble. So the 5 types of identity theft, I'm not going to read it off there, but as you see, the funny thing to me is with all the talk from certain politicians about tax fraud, it's government fraud. It's people stealing benefits. That's where the real fraud is. You know, does Elon Musk pay his fair share? Well, he just bought Twitter, and I can't imagine wasting more money than buying that thing. But that's just me. And then, you know, the top 5 scams on the elderly, and of course COVID-19 added to this. COVID-19 related fraud, medical identity theft. Your grandchild calls you and asks for money. She won't give her grandkids anything, I can tell. She's already ready to say, no way. Tech support reaches out to you unsolicited. Why are you calling me? Tech support. And strangers befriend you online. And that's, old people get taken in by those scams because they're lonely. We're going to speed this up a little bit, do a real quick item on synthetic identities, because we're talking about identity and identity theft. Just talk about what a synthetic identity is.
Yes, synthetic identity is that they are trying to create identity just similar to what is created. For example, I'm going to give you the social security number. The old folks really know that in the old days, the Social Security Administration has been creating a number which was right next to each other, like, you know, chronological orders. And people can create those ones. In recent days, they have been picking and choosing via algorithm, and that's a kind of mixed number, and you know, some other things which scammers cannot pick it. That's one of the way that they create the synthetic identity, very similar, or a next number, or a previous number, or something like that. Same thing goes with the names, not only the Social Security, similar names, they create the synthetic identity in that way, right? So there are many different categories, like manipulated synthetic identities or manufactured synthetic identities. And we can definitely provide you the precautions later on, since we are moving fast.
We're creating these synthetic identities quickly. I'm going to speed it up a little bit, Martina and Abid, so play along with me. We certainly don't want to waste the talents of our crew up here, so we're going to jump ahead to our social media and AI script. Look at Oz. Oz is absolutely prepared. You know, you could sneak a little peek out there. So, Scarecrow, have you heard of TikTok?
Of course, that's the sound of the Tin Man sticker.
I think I need to update your brain software for version 1939.
Well, I make plenty of TikTok videos, especially when I'm on vacation.
Would thieves know when you're away from home?
Whoops.
Nothing to steal from this house but oil cans and metal polish.
Well, it's never good to post those vacation photos while you're on vacation. Wait till you come home. They don't need to see you drinking at the bar in Cancun. They know you're there, they're mad already. Oz, have you ever used AI to identify targets for services?
Hard to admit, I must have had the ugly meter on high. Look at these mutts. Of course you gave them their silly headgear.
Could you recognize them without their costumes?
Of course, anyone who has uploaded a picture to the internet is now in my facial recognition database.
What do you mean?
I perfected this with my buddy Mark Z. Any picture you upload, we use AI and facial recognition to identify people. We even identify people who don't have their own internet accounts.
Mr. Lyon, is that how Oz found you?
Not really. I went to a casting call for Frosted Flakes. The old tiger died.
But you're a lion. How did that work out?
I'm here, aren't I? Apparently painting stripes on my fur didn't help.
We still knew who you were.
And Scarecrow, how did Oz find you?
An internet search for straw talent. I uploaded my DNA to one of those websites. Turns out I'm only 80% straw.
And 20%?
Horse Hoey?
Hooey, of course, hooey. That's a foreign term. City boys aren't used to that. All right.
I've gone from uneducated to having pure fear of the internet now. So much for being cured by Oz.
Oh my, that wasn't the intention. Mr. T, has the presentation had an effect on you?
Not really. I have my oil baths planned out for months with my online subscription buying them, so I should be pretty relaxed. Oh wait, did I just get a text from my bank saying my password expired? I better update it with my phone.
You metalhead, that's phishing.
It's a phishing scam.
Wait, we learned something.
Well, I guess we did.
You ever get those texts? Yeah, ignore them. This is one of my favorite quotes. You might think they can't see you. They can see you. All right, we're going to do passwords, and then we have to bring up our, we have 5 minutes for this, and Abid and Martina, I apologize, I'm going to kind of speed through this, so you guys are off the hook. So we call this our secret societies section. Don't use personal information. If your daughter's name is Margie and it's on Facebook, don't make your password Margie. Okay? Longer passwords are safer. We have passwords, the auto-generated passwords. First of all, they're impossible to remember. So to some extent, I look at it and say, now I gotta write it down and put it somewhere because I'll never remember that. Longer passwords are better. Don't repeat your passwords. I teased my friend Jim when we got that Facebook, and I said, what the hell is your password? And I said, I hope you don't use it anywhere else, and if you do, you better change it now. Because as soon as they get it one place, they're gonna get it as many places as they can. Avoid real words. There's all kinds of ways you can get hacked through your passwords and bad password practices. Data breaches, identity theft, computer hijacking, the point with the cryptojacking, which was pretty weird. Blackmail, loss of privacy. Martina, I'm going to do this part. Don't use the same password for more than one login. If they get it once, they're going to have it everywhere. Don't vary them by one character. Don't, Margie 1 here, Margie 2 there, Margie 3 there. That doesn't work. No personal information. Don't change out letters for numbers. I'm going to give you an example at the end. As a matter of fact, I have it on the screen. This is my favorite because I've seen IT guys do this. Okay, so you think you're going to fool somebody by using special characters or numbers instead of letters, but these are computer programmers who are hacking you. This is not it's not, a hot dog vendor. These guys know what they're doing. Don't do dumb things with your passwords. So, I'm going to show you one more thing after we have to do the scripts though, don't we? You guys just love the scripts, don't you? Do you have standards for your passwords panel?
Yep, line 1, 2, 3.
That's a good one.
My dog's birthday, June 2021.
We had 2021.
I'm not sharing my passwords or standards with anyone. Obviously, that was a trick question.
Do any of you know if your email has been pawned? In a data breach? That's a data breach part. You guys know what pawning is?
I've never pawned nothing except for this tail, only once.
I pawned my wedding ring. It was made of tin anyway. I told the guy it was silver.
Dude, I own the dark web. I'm the pawner, not the pawnee.
Wow, I think we may need some cyber training.
Yes, you do. I'm going to share this piece with you guys because you know what? I forgot to set up my phone for it. I can't show it to you. I will, this is one of the links, and so there's a link created, it's a website created by this cybersecurity person who will tell you the number of records on the dark web of your email account. Now, for money, he'll tell you exactly what they are. But to scare you, he'll just tell you how many. So, well, he's a marketing guy, right? So, from that perspective, it is of some value to see how many times one of your email accounts have been hacked. And if you want to find a way to do something about it, then you can subscribe to his website. That'll be in the list
Okay,
of
great.
items that people can go to. And I apologize, we have to get our lawyer friend up here, because otherwise she'll be mad at me. She came all the way here. So here's the website. We will share that. We have a whole list at the end. This is one of my favorite quotes. Keep it from yourself. All right. We're going to skip through this. See, and guess what, Frank? This was twice as big. And we said, that's 4 hours. I didn't realize what I had left was probably 3. I'm just going to run through this real quickly. Leave data-hungry websites. Facebook, gone. You know, Google, private browsing. Amazon, if you want to buy from Amazon, that's great. They're kind of insular. They want the data for themselves. Facebook makes money off your data. Stop tweeting. Nobody needs to know what the hell you think. Most of them don't care. They don't need to know who you hate and who you love. Again, I said private browsing. Boot data brokers out. What are data brokers? Well, it's interesting because some of the companies that handle our financial life, like Equifax and Experian, are data brokers. So when you go in there and you tell them all about yourself, they're telling everybody else. Because you agreed to let them tell everybody else. Avoid the holiday scams. Avoid holiday scams. If somebody calls you with a gift, it probably isn't a gift. Do not use ancestry websites, especially if you have criminals as relatives. They will catch them because they sell. 23andMe gives their data to the police. I'm not saying that if you have criminals in the family, that I just realize that that information, you don't own it. Get malware protection and virus protection. So,
What about that VPN?
VPN is a virtual private network. You can use a VPN, but VPNs are not foolproof. So virtual private network, anybody who has a corporate computer probably logs into the virtual private network that's run by the corporation. So we are going to jump ahead. We're going to do 2 scripts in a row. How's that? I didn't write this garbage for it not to be said. I mean, stuff. All right, we're going to do prevent internet fraud, and then we're going to do who can save us. That's the lawyer. So, Scarecrow, how would you prevent internet fraud?
Well, I don't know anymore. I feel so internet dumb.
Hide under my pillow.
I don't think I'll ever go back on the internet now. My heart's not in it anymore.
Now you've done it. All my great work gone. Dumb, scared, and heartless. Oh well, at least I'll get to charge them for a tune-up. Perhaps you should all go on my Oz subscription plan. Only $29.99 per month, billed forever.
No, we just need to be smart, not scared, and put our hearts into cybersecurity. Scarecrow, what would you do with your passwords?
Don't share, make them random, change them frequently, don't reuse them. Consider a password management application.
Mr. Lyon, how would you protect yourself on the internet?
Get a cybersecurity suite on my computer that includes antivirus, anti-spyware, anti-phishing, website protection, and where's anti-M?
I'm Mr. MTU. Anyway, Mr. T, how would you manage your social media?
Have a heart to say no to extra data. They don't need to know anything about me. Why, I may even consider deleting my social media profiles.
Oh, horror of horrors.
Darn, there goes my subscription plan. How dare you cure these guys? That's my scam. I mean my job.
Looks like you'll need to find some new dupes. But you know what? We've reached the last portion of this section of the presentation, and we could probably use a dose of reality and maybe some assistance in combating the likes of Oz and his internet frauds. Lion, what would you do?
Call Dorothy.
Dorothy.
Uh-oh.
My keen intellect says Dorothy may have some useful direction in how to handle the nefarious perps like Oz.
Oh, that's right. Here she is.
All right, the attorney will.
Wait, wait, wait! She can't come up yet.
If you're gonna bring me a
Oh, wait, Dorothy can't come up without Tono. Wait a minute, you gotta walk back there and walk up, and you gotta skip. That. All right, you wanna drive?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. So, good morning, everybody. I've been previously introduced, I guess, but my name is Rebecca Rakowski. I'm a data privacy and cybersecurity attorney in the Philadelphia region. I have my own law firm called XPAN Law Partners, and this is literally all we do all day long, so I apologize in advance for extreme boredom. So, a lot of times we talk about cyber risks and mitigating those risks, and it's not only about mitigating those risks from a technological perspective, but it's also about mitigating them from a legal perspective. Because the reality of it is, yes, you're going to lose money if you're scammed online, yes, you're going to have these problems, but you're also going to have legal liabilities that flow from them. Contractual, you're going to have liabilities to your employees, you can have liabilities to your insurance companies and things like that. So the whole point here is to reduce legal liability. These are just a couple of lawsuits that flowed from the SolarWinds data breach. Everybody has heard about it. There were several investor lawsuits. There were some derivative lawsuits. And the reality of it is that it's not the event itself that gets you. I hate to use this expression considering what's going on in the world, but it's not the bomb that will kill you, it's the shrapnel. It's not the data breach that will get you, it's the lawsuits that flow therefrom. So the goal here is to create legal solutions that will insulate your company and reduce your risk. Anybody that talks to you about risk elimination is lying to you, okay? There is no such thing as risk elimination. It's about risk mitigation. In fact, I teach this very topic at Drexel's Klein School of Law. I teach cyber law and enterprise risk management. And the first thing I tell my students is, if somebody says to you we're secure, they're lying. If somebody says to you you have no risk, they're lying. Okay, and of course, I'm talking, and as a lawyer, that naturally means I'm also lying, right? We have a bad rap. So anyway, the bottom line is, it's about creating legal solutions around these things. A lot of the training, absolutely. One of the things I tell my clients is you have to have appropriate training, but you also have to have appropriate contractual language. When the gentleman in the back asked about, what do you do, and the response was, oh, well, you gotta look to your contract. You're darn right you better look in your contracts, right? And my guess is you haven't read the fine print, because nobody does. I know, because I write the fine print, okay? And I tell you all the time, people go, I didn't even see this in there. I'm like, sorry about you. So we wanna talk about how to reduce legal risk. You talk about privacy and security provisions in your contracts. Every single contract has them nowadays. Who is assuming the risk? Are you going with a shared risk model? Okay, how do I push risk? If I can't push risk, I insure risk. These are the things that you need to be thinking about for your own business and when you're advising your clients. When you're evaluating the risk of an organization, right? One of the things is, what is their legal liabilities? Well, part of those legal liabilities are gonna flow from a data breach. How often can I audit my vendors? Who are my vendors? I think a question in the back was, well, how do I determine who to use? Well, when I work with clients, we create a risk rating system. Organizations that are collecting highly sensitive data and are critical to the organization have a higher risk profile. Those are the guys I want to see your SOC 2 Type 2 report. I want to know, are you ISO 27001 certified? Okay, and yes, I want to see the report. I always get that question. You want to actually read the SOC 2? I'm like, yeah, I want to read it, okay? Because if I'm not reading it, oh, you have one? Great, you've checked the box, but what does it say? What are you doing? Okay, digging in a little bit. My critical vendors, I'm asking those critical questions. If you look, and for those of you who have smaller businesses, you can go online. There are plenty of resources that, I hate to say are free and are good, but are free and good, okay? Department of Labor has recently issued cybersecurity guidelines. One of their 3 big pillars, vendors. Go in there, take a look, see what it says. Looking at what questions you should be asking, and then not just asking them, but asking a little bit differently. I get them all the time from my clients. Oh, we got this questionnaire from one of our customers, and it's literally cut and paste from the website. You didn't think of anything else to ask? This is all you got from it? Right? Think about, what do I want to know about my vendor? And if you don't know what to ask, find somebody who does. I do this for a living, quite literally. And part of it is, I get in there and I ask the vendors, and then I ask them follow-up questions. If I don't like their answer, or I think their answer sounds, oh, I don't know, rehearsed. Other legal solutions, these are just basic. I put them up here, I put them in there because I was asked to provide slides, but most people just like to hear me yammer. But talking about their incident response plan, do they have one? Do vendors have an incident response plan? What does it look like? Are you insured? What type of insurance do you have? Do you have standalone cyber liability insurance? These are all critical questions you want to be finding out from your vendors. Now I'm picking on vendors because this is the number one. You have two huge risks in your organization: vendors and employees. Okay? I love my employees, but I don't trust them as far as I can throw them, and I'm not very big, so I can't probably throw them very far. Okay? And I like my vendors because I only work with people I like, but I don't trust you either. Okay? Yes, lawyers are your vendors. All right? But nobody ever asks me, what are your data collection practices? How do you store my data? No, they don't ask me these questions. I'm like, you people are giving me your sensitive data and you don't even bother to ask because they assume because I'm a lawyer, I know what I'm doing. Well, guess what? Most lawyers don't. So you want to make sure that you're asking these questions of these critical vendors. Every time you share information with someone, you should know what they're doing with it, how they're securing it, who they're sharing it with, and then what happens when the inevitable happens, which means the hits the fan, and they have a data breach. What information do I get to find out from you? How often? What are the remediation efforts? Am I entitled to find out those? Who's paying for it, right? The big question. And if I have to sue you, what does that look like? All of that is laid out in my contracts. Why? Because I don't like to leave things to chance. And 9 times out of 10, people are not paying attention to these provisions. And you get down the road and they're like, oh, well, we don't have to do that. Well, actually, Clause 2, Section 2 of your contract says you in fact do have to tell me this information. They didn't even realize it was in there because they looked at the price and they looked at the term and they signed the contract and they were done. But the devil is in the details with these things. And people like me are out there writing these contracts all the time. So if you're signing storage agreements, if you're working with banks, if you're online and you don't read the privacy policies, that's on you because the information is in there. And frankly, you should be doing that to everybody else too. Why don't you have privacy and security provisions in your contract? You are leaving liability out there. You are leaving yourself open. It's not just the tech part. The tech part is a huge piece of it. But I always say, it's not, the cybersecurity and data privacy are a 3-legged stool. You have your tech, you have your legal, and then you have your tech again, right? You have your insurance, actually, that's the 3rd leg of the stool. But you need to have all 3 pieces in place and communicating and being able to function properly in order to really reduce your risk and your liability. I'm gonna stop there because I have this awesome graphic. But does anyone have any questions about legal questions about contracts or insurance coverage or anything like that? I'm happy to answer them.
Quick question.
Yes.
So do you sort of trade hours for dollars in your business, or do you come up with fixed fee engagements to help scope out an assignment? Like, how do you bill for your services?
So my services can be billed, it depends on what the client is looking for. I have smaller clients who like a fixed fee arrangement, and so we will scope it out depending on the engagement. If it is a larger project or something I don't know what I'm getting into, like a data breach, I will do that hourly. But it's kind of a mixed bag, and luckily I just have to ask my boss, which is also me, how to do it, so I have that flexibility.
And you should have an agreement in place with her. Before you get breached, you don't want to pay that hourly fee, guy.
Yes, no,
By the way, I get 10% of anything she gets from me.
It's called the VIG, right, Steve?
The
Is that
VIG,
what I heard?
the Italian VIG. It's like a fig, but it has money.
A lot of times for my clients, I do what's called a privacy and security impact assessment. So I look at your data collection practices, I look at your storage practices, I look at your technology, your security, and then I tell you what laws you're triggering, because every single state has a different data breach notification law. Different states have data privacy laws. I was actually reading before I came in here that it looks like Connecticut's about to pass a new law, so you have, it will be the 5th state to pass a data privacy law. We don't have a federal data privacy law, so that is a problem. But if you are in the healthcare industry, if you're in the financial industry, there are other laws that are impacting your data. So it's all about the data, and then what laws are you triggering based upon your data collection practices?
And just a quick add-on, are there any industries that are sort of uninsurable in this space, or are there any industries that you just aren't interested in providing legal advice to?
I'm a lawyer.
I'm just asking. I thought
I'm interested in the data. People say to me all the time, and I have clients that are small startups all the way to, you would recognize their name, okay? Now, I have a small boutique law firm. I come from a big law practice, but I have my own law firm now. And every single one of those clients, it's all about their data. I don't care if you're in health, I don't care if you're in finance, I don't care if you're in gaming, I don't care, because it's about your data. And that's what I care about. We're understanding it, protecting it, insuring it where we can't protect it. Anybody else? Any other questions? I write a lot of contracts, but I didn't want to bore you with the contract provisions because, you know, it's boring.
very helpful, thank you.
Thank you very much. Because I rushed, I forgot to introduce Rebecca Rakowski, and we met at a security conference. Oh, you don't get the
I don't
cute
get
tag.
to keep the dog. You know, I had a care terrier.
Leave it to the lawyer to take something. You want it? You can
No.
No, you can have it.
I'm not gonna take the puppy. What if you have to do this again?
Exactly why you can't have it, see?
I'm gonna-
Lawyers are smart once you lead them to them. Well, thank you again, Rebecca. If you need Rebecca's contact information, just let us know. Frank actually has her email contact. She's, as you can tell, she's an expert in her field and believes in prevention. So that's what we were really talking about today, right? Training and prevention. Once it's done, it's done. Go ahead, you can go. So, thank you.
Thanks,
We do have to flag for our wonderful people up front here, since they volunteered. So we have two different items. We have enough for you get that. Or you get this. And I have two of each, so there's four of you, so you get to fight. I mean, I was gonna say fight over it. I think the lion might win. You know, they're cowardly, right? The whiplash with her tail. So this actually has a bottle in it, and some other stuff.
Thank you.
And I will be taking the props back.
Steve, thank you very much for your
Well, thank you for having me.
presentation.
Oh my gosh. Oh, thank you. I got four of these.
Thank you guys for
Thank
spending
you,
your
everybody, for coming. Our next meeting is going to be
I'm not entering any
on
personal.
Tuesday, June 7th. It's going to be virtual because of our speaker being out of the state. The HCFE has their annual fraud conference